And I didn't know that he was paralyzed too. And we both sat up in the bed at the same time. And I said, what the hell was that?
The incident was over in what seemed like an instant. The baby was standing up in her crib looking dazed but unharmed. Dan and Joyce thought they had just shared a scary dream. That is until 1992, 16 years later. Dan, a computer technician, was working at his keyboard when suddenly he was seized by panic.
I immediately thought I was having a heart attack because I started sweating real bad. My ears were ringing. It was a real tight feeling in my head.
Dan was rushed to the emergency room where doctors ran tests and ordered x-rays. When the results were in, they concluded that Dan had suffered an anxiety attack and sent him home, but the symptoms persisted.
To see him like that was devastating. He couldn't leave the house. He was so scared.
After 6 weeks of constant fear, Dan sat down in front of the TV trying to relax. He turned on a movie that happened to be about alien abductions. Dan experienced a sudden revelation.
There was one part in that movie that this little creature or whatever was kind of peeking out from around the door, and it was in the dark and the shadows, you know, and everything. And I immediately just, my heart started racing, and I just kind of completely went out of it again.
Dan wondered, was his anxiety somehow related to the subject of the movie? He later chanced upon another television show about alien abductions and watched an interview with therapist John Carpenter, the National Director of Abduction Research for the Mutual UFO Network. Dan immediately contacted Carpenter for help.
He suffered from a panic disorder at that point in time, and he had flashbacks and nightmarish images of these beings, but didn't understand what was going on and needed some relief.
Dan agreed to an on-camera hypnosis session with Carpenter, during which he revisited that memorable night in 1976, the night he saw the red light over the baby's crib. This time, under hypnosis, he remembers more. He recalls cowering in the corner of his bed as he watched alien beings take his daughter Heather from her crib.
He went to the crib.
He went to the crib.
Picked her up.
Uh-huh.
I can't move.
You can't move. You don't have any control over what's happening to you.
No.
What do you see happening now?
They took her.
He took her.
Under separate hypnosis, Dan's wife Joyce recalled the same sequence of events. They both say little beings marched them outside. Together, the family was floated onto a spaceship.
I never wanted it to happen to my children. I didn't realize until later that it had. But when they took her, I couldn't do anything.
Heather, now 22 and married, remembers a series of abductions beginning in childhood, when she was forced to play telepathic games with the aliens.
How do you play the game?
If I pick up that one, he'll let me go.
What are you feeling?
I want to go home.
Mm-hmm. What does he tell you about that?
If I pick it up, he'll let me go.
The Aarons family believes alien kidnappers have not only intruded in the lives of their children, but are now visiting one of their grandchildren.
He calls them his little buddies that come in his room and play. He said he wanted to watch the ship leave. I'm not going to tell him that it's not real, because it is real.
Skeptics would say that Dan, Joyce, and Heather could have constructed their stories together before hypnosis.
But then they'd have to know how to answer the trick questions and the leading suggestions, which I provide. Plus, there are many details they wouldn't know about that we would be looking for as markers for truthfulness and reliability with other abduction data.
Researchers also believe abductees are sincere because of another consistently reported feature of abduction accounts: the insertion of alien implants.
I turned my head to the right, and this taller being came over. And he kept telling me that it would be okay, that they wouldn't hurt me. And then they took this very long needle, and they put it up my right nostril. And I closed my eyes when I heard it crunch. And then I became very calm.
Objects said to be these implants have been recovered. MIT's David Pritchard has examined the composition of one of these reported implants in a laboratory and contends there is absolutely no physical proof of alien activity.
If we don't find physical evidence, and we haven't, then we have to lump this in the category of fairies, elves, near-death experiences people report, or we're going to be back to the days of the medicine men running our society.
With the help of hypnosis, Dan's anxiety subsided and he returned to work. But what once seemed out of this world has now become a part of his life.
If this is some sort of mental thing that's happening to people, then why aren't they out, why aren't the scientists or the doctors or whatever trying to find a cure?
Quite impressive video there, huh? This video, some of you might have seen it. It's aired over the years. It's from A&E. Actually, I've seen it every single year for about the past 6, 7 years since I started looking at some of these videos. You see a lot of the similarities from what Dr. Carla Turner talked about right there on that video with this family that they had gone through. You see that this is not a very enjoyable experience for them. You see a lot of things, key things going on here. You see that it also is generational. There's a lot of issues just in that one little 8-minute piece that you can see that covers a lot of the aspects of what the abduction experiencers go through. As we were working with the abduction research, most of them were coming in through our monthly meetings. We had 4 or 5 there that were local, that we were working with, that we were able to work with. But something unusual was also happening in these monthly meetings. Remember, they're MUFON meetings that we had set up, open to the public. And one thing that MUFON had warned me about from the beginning is when you open up a meeting to the public that's about UFOs, you're going to get all sorts of people at these meetings. And it might not all be scientific based. I had no idea what they're talking about until I opened the meetings up. I had people coming in there with all sorts of things to talk about and share, which we opened it up to explore. I mean, they were just things I had absolutely never heard of. A lot of it was things dealing with metaphysics. And I had no clue what metaphysics were about. And we opened up to look at what these people were talking about. A lot of it was what you call metaphysics and New Age teachings. We had to look at them as researchers because they're still part of that UFO puzzle in some way. Okay? If you're going to look for the answer to this UFO picture and what is the picture, you got to bring all those pieces to the puzzle to the table to get the final picture. Okay? You can't leave pieces out. Now, MUFON might not have been prepared to deal with those pieces, but it doesn't mean they should be excluded. Okay, so as an objective researcher and an open-minded researcher at the time, I said, let's look at all of it. So we started looking at these ideas that the people that were coming to the meetings had dealing with the New Age and the metaphysics. There seemed to be a spiritual connection there to the UFO phenomenon. And if you're only looking at it from a scientific point of view, you don't catch that. You have to step back and look at it a lot bigger. And that's what we were doing while we were working with the abduction experiencers. As a matter of fact, a lot of the abduction experiencers, on their quest looking for answers through their life, were brought into the study of New Age and metaphysics teachings. We kept seeing that over and over and over. It didn't seem like the Christian church was set up at the time to give them any help or answers. So they would go elsewhere looking for these answers. And they were finding that connection between the New Age and metaphysics and the UFO realm. As we were exploring it, I was attracted to it. When I first came into the whole thing with UFOs and becoming a MUFON member, I had no spiritual background at all. I was pretty much what you call an agnostic, which I felt was good because it kept me with no base to be able to distort my views. So my whole beginning into all of this with the work with MUFON and sighting investigations, I was absolutely had a clean slate, no belief system that was affecting it. I could look at this scientifically. As I opened up to looking at the New Age and metaphysical side of it, and as I became attracted to that, and I saw that there was something there that it's like I had this hole, and they had this thing that could fill that hole. You ever had that hole, you know that something's missing in your life? Well, here they had this something that they were offering. And it was a form of spirituality, and it was connected to what I was studying. So over the next couple of years, I went on that quest of enlightenment that these people go through and continue on in their life. I studied everything I could get my hands on dealing with metaphysics and the New Age beliefs, to the point to where I was a practitioner, where I was sharing with people and trying to bring them in. And it was interesting because there were a lot of poor Christians out there that I was converting to the New Age. Why was I able to do that? Because they really didn't know what they believed. And it didn't take too much to get them questioning what they thought they believed in. This went on for about 4 years. We're still working with the abductions and my study into the metaphysics. And in 1996, I had a female investigator working with me because, as you see, a lot of the abductions are with females. And it's hard to talk one-on-one with the females because